the Stoic lesson that brings true inner peace. Most people spend their entire lives chasing peace, yet it always seems to slip further from their grasp. We tell ourselves, if only I had more money, if only I had the perfect partner, if only I reached that next level of success, then I would finally rest. And yet, the moment we gain what we thought would soothe us, our hearts stir again, restless, anxious, and unsatisfied. It is a paradox of the human condition. The harder we chase peace in the world outside us, the more it eludes us. You've probably felt this before, lying awake at night, mind racing with worries about tomorrow, even though today provided all you needed. Why is it that despite all our advances, our comforts, our technologies, our achievements, we remain troubled in the quiet corners of our souls? The Stoics faced the same question 2,000 years ago. They lived in a world of empires, wars, slavery, wealth and political intrigue, hardly a calm environment, and yet they claimed that true peace is possible, not as an accident, but as a way of life. The lesson they left us is radical, even unsettling. Peace does not depend on fortune, on others, or on what we possess. Peace is found in the way we see, think, and respond. Peace, they argued, is an inside job. When you hear these words, perhaps something stirs in you, a recognition that you've been looking in the wrong place. Maybe you've tried to purchase peace through possessions, only to find that the thrill fades. Maybe you've sought it in relationships, only to discover that other people cannot carry the burden of your soul. The Stoic lesson we will explore is not about rejecting the world, but about reordering it, about learning to rest where no storm can reach. That lesson begins with control. We suffer because we confuse what is ours to command with what is beyond us. A man loses sleep not because fortune is cruel, but because he believes it should obey his will. A woman feels tormented not because someone insulted her, but because she insists she must control how others speak. How many moments of your life have been wasted in anger, frustration, or despair simply because the world would not bend? Epictetus, once a slave and later a Stoic teacher, cut to the heart of the matter. He said that some things are up to us, our judgments, our choices, our responses, and some things are not, our health, wealth, reputation, and the behavior of others. Confusing the two guarantees misery. Seeing the difference is the birth of freedom. Think of your daily life. You wake up, perhaps already stressed about the traffic that will meet you on the way to work. The cars honking, the lights turning red at the worst moments, the minutes slipping away. None of this is under your control. Yet you tighten your grip on the wheel, curse under your breath, allow your blood pressure to rise. By the time you arrive, you have spent the morning in battle with what was never yours to command. The Stoic asks, what if you released it? What if you accepted that the traffic belongs to the world, but your state of mind belongs to you? What if, instead of a clenched jaw, you carried calm, even in delay? The same applies to bigger storms. You might lose a job, you might face betrayal, you might grow ill. These things, painful as they are not fully within your grasp. If your peace depends on bending them to your will, you will always live in chains. But if your peace depends on your choice, to endure, to act with virtue, to hold your inner fortress, then no loss can rob you. Here lies the first step toward true inner peace. To see clearly where control ends and where it begins. Once you know this, the world changes. The chains you thought bound you were illusions. The storms you thought would drown you become occasions to prove your strength. You are no longer tossed helplessly on the waves because you have learned to steer the only ship you were ever meant to command, yourself. If the first lesson of peace is to know what lies within your control, the next is to guard what enters your mind. The Stoics called this the discipline of assent, the practice of deciding which thoughts to embrace and which to refuse. Most of our suffering, they observed, does not come from the world itself, but from the judgments we attach to it. Seneca said it plainly: we suffer more in imagination than in reality. A sudden sound in the night can be just a branch falling, but our minds rush to paint it as danger. A delay in someone's reply may be nothing at all, yet our thoughts craft entire stories of rejection. Left unchecked, our judgments are like sparks that set fire to the dry grass of our emotions. Imagine someone insults you. Their words land in your ear, but what happens next is entirely yours to decide. If you assent to the thought, "This diminishes me, this is intolerable," then anger ignites, peace shatters, and you feel wounded. But if you refuse to give assent, if you pause and remind yourself, "Their words do not define me, their opinion is beyond my control," then the insult passes like wind through the trees. The words existed, but they carried no power except what you lent them. This is not denial, it is mastery. The Stoic does not pretend that pain or insult does not exist, but he examines it before handing it authority. Just as a wise king does not let every stranger into the city gates, so the wise person does not let every thought rule the heart. You cannot stop a bird from flying overhead, Epictetus said, but you can stop it from building a nest in your hair. Thoughts will come, but peace belongs to those who decide which ones to dwell upon. In your own life, notice how quickly judgments run ahead of reality. Someone fails to greet you, and your mind whispers that they dislike you. A project faces obstacles, and you declare it a disaster before it has finished. This restless imagination is the enemy of peace. But with training, you can pause, examine, and correct. You can learn to say, "This event is not good or bad by itself. It is my judgment that makes it so." That moment of pause is where inner peace is born. Perspective is the companion of judgment. If discipline of assent governs which thoughts to accept, perspective governs how we see the world itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote that life is opinion, that things are not what they seem, but what we think them to be. Two people can face the same storm, one cursing the rain, the other grateful for the harvest it will bring. The storm has not changed. The difference lies in the lens through which it is seen. The Stoics trained themselves to see life through a wide and cosmic lens. What troubles us seems enormous when our gaze is narrow. A single insult, a missed opportunity, a minor illness can feel like the end of the world when we see only our own small circle. But when we step back and view life in its vastness, time stretching thousands of years behind and ahead, the earth turning endlessly, nations rising and falling, our troubles shrink into their true size. Marcus reminded himself that soon even the greatest emperors would be forgotten, their names like dust blown away. If that is true, what becomes of our petty quarrels, our brief disappointments, our fragile fears? They too fade. This cosmic perspective does not belittle life, it deepens it. By seeing how fleeting our days are, we learn to cherish them. By realizing how small our problems are in the grand scheme, we stop letting them poison our hours. To shift perspective is to turn a prison into a classroom, a setback into training, a loss into a lesson. One way to practice this is through daily reflection. Each evening, write down what disturbed you and then place it in the frame of eternity. Will this matter tomorrow, a year from now, 10 years from now? Against the backdrop of the stars, what does this moment mean? This practice is not abstract philosophy, it is medicine for the restless heart. Peace comes not from the world itself, but from the way you choose to see it. A narrow view breeds turmoil, a broader one brings calm. And once you learn to widen your sight, life will rarely catch you off guard, for you will see every storm as a passing cloud in a much vaster sky. We imagine peace will come when we finally gain what we desire. Yet the more we desire, the more restless we become. The Stoics warned that desire is like an unquenchable fire. The more fuel you feed it, the larger it grows. To chase peace through desire is like trying to calm a storm by throwing wind into it. Seneca once wrote that it is not the man who has little who is poor, but the one who craves more. True inner peace is not found in the multiplication of possessions, but in the mastery of desire. Look around you. The world is built to inflame longing. Advertisements whisper that you will finally be whole with this car, this home, this clothing. Social media parades the highlights of other people's lives, urging you to grasp for what they have. But when you reach one desire, another appears. Peace built on acquisition is fragile, for it rests on the shifting sands of endless craving. The Stoic lesson is simple. To have peace, want less. To desire what is within your reach. To be content not only with much, but even with little. Epictetus, who owned almost nothing, spoke with more calm than many emperors. Why? Because his heart was not enslaved to longing. He had discovered that freedom lies not in adding to your storehouse, but in subtracting from your wants. Think of desire as muddying clear water. Each craving drops another stone into the stream, stirring up the sediment, clouding what was once transparent. To recover clarity, you do not need more stones, you need stillness. The Stoic finds joy in simplicity, in a plain meal eaten with gratitude, in the warmth of the sun, in the presence of a friend. These are treasures that no thief can steal. You can practice this by choosing moments of voluntary simplicity. Skip a luxury you could afford. Sleep on the floor for a night. Walk when you could ride. These small acts remind you how little is truly needed to live. When you train your soul to be satisfied with less, you become untouchable by fortune. And in that untouchability, you discover peace. But even if we master desire, there remains a greater thief of peace, the fear of death. For what good is wealth or honor if a shadow of dread follows us everywhere? The Stoics faced this truth directly. They saw that nothing robs us of calm so completely as the terror of our own mortality. We try to forget it, to bury it beneath busyness and entertainment, yet it lingers at the edges of our mind. Death is the silent fear behind our frantic pursuits, the shadow that makes every joy feel fragile. The Stoics refused to run from it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." For him, death was not an enemy to be feared, but a teacher to be welcomed. To remember death is to remember the value of life. It sharpens the present moment, stripping away trivial concerns. When you see that time is short, you no longer waste it in anger, envy, or regret. You embrace what is before you with full attention. Seneca wrote that to fear death is to be a slave forever, for it is the one master we can never escape. But if you learn to make peace with it, you live in freedom. The Stoic approach was not cold resignation, but courageous acceptance. Death comes to all. It is part of nature's design. To rage against it is to rage against life itself. But to accept it is to align yourself with the order of things. And in that alignment, peace is born. Imagine what your days would be like if the fear of death no longer haunted you. Would you not live more boldly, love more deeply, act more justly? Every dawn would be a gift, every evening a triumph. Death, instead of being a thief in the night, becomes a counselor at your side, reminding you to use your hours wisely. The Stoics did not seek death, but they did not tremble before it. Epictetus said, "I must die. If it is now, I die now. If later, I will prepare myself then." Such clarity strips fear of its sting, and when fear dissolves, peace flows in to take its place. For the one who is ready for death at any hour, life becomes a calm voyage rather than a frantic chase. This is the second great key to inner peace. Do not let the fear of death rule you. Accept its presence, learn from its lessons, and walk forward without trembling. Only then can your days be filled with the unshakable calm that the Stoics knew so well. Hardship is not an exception to life, it is life. We may wish for calm seas, but storms will always come. The Stoics knew that the path to peace does not lie in avoiding hardship, but in enduring it with strength. Peace is not the absence of suffering, but the presence of resilience. Epictetus bore the chains of slavery, yet spoke of freedom. Seneca endured exile and political danger, yet wrote of tranquility. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, ruled during plagues, wars, and betrayal, yet his journals reveal a man striving for calm. If peace were dependent on favorable conditions, none of them would have found it. But they proved the opposite. Peace is possible even in fire. When misfortune strikes, the instinct is to cry out, "Why me?" But the Stoics reversed the question, "Why not me?" What makes us so special that we should be spared the common trials of humanity? Illness visits the body, betrayal wounds the heart, poverty empties the purse, death comes for those we love. These are not punishments, but part of existence. To demand exemption is to fight against reality itself. And yet, in the midst of pain, we have a choice. We may sink into despair, or we may endure. Endurance is not mere passive waiting, it is the active decision to stand firm, to remain unmoved by what is outside us. The Stoics likened life to a play. We do not choose our role, but we choose how we perform it. Whether we are cast as the beggar or the king, the sick or the healthy, the betrayed or the beloved, peace lies in playing our part with dignity. Think of your own life. Perhaps you are burdened by financial struggles, or a body that does not obey you, or relationships that wound more than they heal. The Stoic lesson is not to minimize these, but to face them with courage. When you refuse to be broken, when you decide that hardship will train rather than crush you, you discover a calm strength deeper than comfort could ever give. Endurance turns storms into teachers and pain into a forge where the soul is refined. This brings us to the root of Stoic peace, virtue. For the Stoics, the only true good was not wealth, not health, not power, but virtue, the state of living with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Why? Because these are the only things fully within our power. Fortune may strip us of everything else, but no one can take our integrity unless we surrender it. And when your peace is grounded in virtue, nothing external can shake it. Consider conscience. A man who has wealth but no virtue is tormented by fear of loss, by guilt, by suspicion. A man who has little but lives justly rests with a calm heart. Seneca wrote that the good conscience is the softest pillow. When you act with integrity, when your words align with truth, when your deeds honor justice, you carry within you a fortress no enemy can breach. Courage, too, is essential. Life will demand risks, will confront you with fear. Peace is not found in shrinking from these, but in facing them with steady heart. Temperance keeps desire in check, preserving balance. Wisdom guides all, teaching us to see clearly what is in our power and what is not. Together, these four virtues form an unshakable foundation. History offers examples. Cato the Younger, though surrounded by corruption and ultimately doomed in politics, remained steadfast in his principles. Though he lost position and eventually life, he never lost peace, because his anchor was within, not in the shifting tides of fortune. To live by virtue is to live in alignment with nature, to choose harmony with reason and justice over fleeting pleasures or fears, and in this harmony the soul rests. The world outside may rage, but within there is stillness. This is why virtue is not merely a moral choice, but a practical one. It is the root of tranquility. For when you have done what is right, when you have walked in wisdom and justice, no storm can rob you of peace. Many live in chains without realizing it, chains forged from the opinions of others. Praise lifts them up, blame crushes them down, and their peace rises and falls with the shifting winds of public approval. But the Stoics saw this for what it is, slavery of the soul. If you rest your calm on applause, you are never truly at rest, for applause fades. If you let criticism dictate your worth, you hand over your freedom to the judgment of strangers who may not even know themselves. True peace is found in acting with integrity, regardless of who sees or who comments. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that those who criticize us will soon be gone, like dust carried on the wind. Their praise will not last, their blame will not last, but the character of your actions remains. To live for virtue rather than reputation is to step out of the cage of opinion. Imagine walking through your day unshaken by gossip or misunderstanding. Someone mocks you, you remain steady. Someone praises you, you remain steady. Not because you are indifferent to all people, but because your compass points inward to what reason and conscience declare. The world cannot grant peace, and therefore the world cannot take it away. You can train yourself in this by practicing anonymity in your actions. Do something good where no one will see it. Help a stranger without revealing your name. Choose silence when you could boast. These small exercises loosen the grip of praise and blame on your heart. When you can act justly without an audience, you will have tasted the freedom of true inner peace. Peace also flows from learning to live in harmony with nature's course. To the Stoics, nature was not something outside us, but the very order of the universe, the flow of time, the rise and fall of events, the patterns of life itself. To resist it is to exhaust ourselves in vain struggle. To accept it is to discover calm. Picture a river. If you fight its current, you are dragged and battered. But if you align yourself with its flow, you move with ease. Life is that river. Change will come, loss will come, aging will come, death will come. These are not punishments. They are the stream of existence. When we fight them, we suffer twice, once from the event itself, and again from our refusal to let it be. Marcus Aurelius wrote that whatever happens is natural, and what is natural cannot be harmful to the whole. If storms sweep the land, they too belong to the order of the world. If your body weakens with age, it is not an error, but part of the design. To see this is to rest in acceptance, not in resignation, but in trust that you are part of something larger, something ordered, something vast. This acceptance transforms how you meet life's changes. When fortune removes something you love, you remind yourself it was never truly yours, but a gift lent for a time. When the seasons of life shift, you flow with them rather than clinging to what has passed. Peace arises not from demanding that the world stay still, but from moving in rhythm with its dance. To live in harmony with nature is to breathe more freely, to stop pushing against what cannot be changed, and to embrace what is with gratitude. It is to find rest not in fixing the world to your will, but in aligning your will to the world. And in that alignment, the heart becomes still, like a river that runs clear and calm. Peace is not a theory to be admired from a distance. It is a discipline to be practiced daily. The Stoics understood that the mind, left untrained, wanders into restlessness and fear. Just as a body requires exercise to stay strong, the soul requires practices to stay steady. Marcus Aurelius began his mornings reminding himself of what he would face: selfishness, ignorance, ingratitude. By preparing in advance, he armed his mind against surprise. Seneca closed his days with reflection, reviewing his words and actions, asking where he had fallen short and where he had grown. Epictetus urged his students to keep their thoughts at hand, rehearsing them until they became second nature. This is the rhythm of peace. It is not a gift bestowed once, but a skill honed over time. Each day offers countless opportunities to practice. When anger stirs, pause and remember. This judgment is mine to accept or reject. When desire arises, test it. Will this truly bring calm, or is it another chain? When fear whispers, confront it. What is the worst that can happen, and can I not endure it? These moments are the training ground where inner peace is forged. In our time, the forms may differ, but the essence remains. A journal can be your morning companion, where you set your intentions and frame your perspective. A walk in silence can still your racing thoughts and remind you of nature's calm. Even a few deep breaths, taken with awareness, can shift you from agitation to clarity. The practice does not demand hours in solitude or monasteries of stone. It demands only attention and consistency. Think of peace as a muscle. If you train it in small things, patience in a line, calm in a delay, it will stand firm in great things. If you neglect it, you will find yourself unprepared when storms rise. Daily practice makes peace not an occasional visitor, but a permanent resident in the soul. But peace is not for ourselves alone. The Stoics taught that we are citizens of the cosmos, threads in a vast tapestry of human community. To live at war with others is to live at war with ourselves. True tranquility includes harmony with those around us. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor, reminded himself that every person he met was his kin, sharing the same reason, the same breath, the same human condition. How often is our peace disturbed by conflict with others? Anger at a neighbor, bitterness toward a colleague, resentment toward family. These wounds fester because we forget our shared humanity. The Stoic sees beyond the surface. If someone wrongs you, it is often ignorance, weakness, or fear that drives them. To hate them is to add fuel to the fire. To understand and forgive is to remain calm. Peace with others requires patience. Just as you stumble, so do they. Just as you wish for mercy, so do they. Seneca counseled kindness even toward those who injure us, for their errors harm themselves more than us. When you let go of revenge, you free yourself from chains heavier than any insult could bind. This does not mean allowing injustice to flourish unchecked. Justice itself is a Stoic virtue, and sometimes duty requires correction or resistance. But even then, it must be done without hatred, for hatred burns first in the one who carries it. The Stoic acts for the common good, not out of vengeance. When you cultivate peace with others, you multiply peace within. Imagine walking through life without bitterness, without grudges, without the constant noise of conflict in your heart. Each act of patience, each moment of compassion enlarges the calm within you. In serving others, in forgiving them, in seeing yourself as part of the whole, you find a serenity deeper than solitude could ever give. Peace is not the absence of people, it is harmony with them. The world is fickle, and fortune is a master that gives with one hand and takes with the other. Riches may pile up for years, then vanish overnight. Health may seem secure, only to be broken by a sudden illness. Honor may shine one day and be stained the next. If our peace is tied to fortune, it will always be fragile, for fortune never rests. The Stoics looked at this truth without flinching and declared, "Peace must be rooted in what cannot be taken." Seneca wrote that true wealth is not measured by what you possess, but by what you can live without. A man enslaved to riches is poor, for he fears their loss. A man who can greet poverty without trembling is rich, even if he owns little. To enjoy blessings without clinging to them, that is the path to freedom. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning that everything he held dear could be gone by nightfall. This was not despair, but preparation, a way of savoring what he had without letting it rule him. Think of the stress that consumes so many lives today. Bank accounts, careers, reputations, possessions, each becomes a fortress we desperately guard. And yet, no fortress is unbreachable. Thieves break in, markets collapse, tongues spread rumors, bodies weaken. To anchor your peace in these is to build your house on sand. The Stoic builds instead on the rock of character and reason, which no thief, no sickness, no slander can erode. This does not mean despising fortune. When it gives, accept with gratitude. When it takes, release without bitterness. Fortune's gifts are like flowers in the field, beautiful while they last, but not ours to command. To love them while they bloom and let them go when they fade, that is serenity. The Stoic walks through life with open hands, ready to receive, ready to let go, unshaken either way. From this posture grows gratitude, which is itself a powerful fountain of peace. Gratitude transforms what we have into enough. It is the antidote to endless craving and the enemy of discontent. The Stoics practiced gratitude not only for pleasures, but also for trials, for even hardship serves as a teacher. Each day, Seneca examined his blessings and counted them as wealth greater than gold. Marcus thanked the gods for the family, mentors, and moments of kindness that shaped him. Epictetus, though owning almost nothing, gave thanks for the mind and reason he still possessed, for no master could strip those away. Gratitude shifted their eyes from what was missing to what was present, from restlessness to contentment. You can practice this today. Each evening, write down 3 things for which you are grateful. They need not be grand: a meal that nourished you, a friend who listened, the air in your lungs. Over time, you will find your heart trained to notice abundance where once it only saw lack. Even pain can be a cause for gratitude, for it reveals your strength, your resilience, your capacity to endure. Gratitude is not naive optimism. It does not ignore suffering, but it sees the whole picture. Even in hardship, there are rays of light. Even in loss, there is something left to cherish. When gratitude takes root, discontent withers and peace blossoms. It teaches the soul to rest in the present, satisfied, unshaken by what is absent. The Stoic who lives with gratitude is untouchable, for nothing can make him poor. Even when stripped of fortune, he holds abundance in his heart, and that abundance is the seed of lasting peace. Peace is never found in the past nor in the future, but only in the present moment. Yet how much of life is wasted on regrets over what has already passed, or anxieties about what has not yet come? The Stoics taught that the present is the only ground we truly stand on. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself not to be carried away by thoughts of tomorrow, but to do what lay before him now, with justice and calm. Seneca warned that we suffer before suffering comes. tormented by imagined troubles while today's task sits untouched. Think of the unrest that fills your mind. How often do you replay old wounds, speaking to yourself words you can no longer unsay, reliving choices you cannot undo? Or how often do you leap ahead into the future, consumed by worries of what may or may not unfold? Both steal the peace of today. Regret and fear are shadows. The present alone is substance. The courage to be present is not easy, for the mind resists stillness. It runs toward distraction, toward fantasy, toward escape. But with practice, you can draw it back. You can choose to savor a simple meal instead of scrolling mindlessly, to give full attention to a conversation instead of letting thoughts wander, to breathe deeply in the morning light instead of rushing past it. These small acts anchor you to reality, and in that anchoring, peace grows. Presence is also courage, for it requires facing what is before you without hiding behind dreams of what was or what might be. The present moment often asks for action, for endurance, for acceptance. But when you embrace it, you find that the weight you feared was not so heavy after all. The future does not exist. The past is gone. The present is enough. To live in it fully is to live in peace. Alongside presence comes silence, a gift often forgotten in a world of constant noise. The Stoics prized silence, not only as the absence of sound, but as the stillness of the soul. In silence, you learn to listen, to your thoughts, to nature, to reason, to the whisper of wisdom within. In noise, the mind is pulled in 1,000 directions. In silence, it gathers strength. Seneca advised speaking little and only when necessary, for words once released cannot be recalled. Epictetus counseled his students to listen more than they spoke, for learning begins with the ear, not the tongue. Marcus Aurelius found solace in the early hours of dawn when the city still slept, and his thoughts could wander freely without distraction. These men knew that silence is not emptiness, but fullness, the soil in which peace takes root. Consider how the world bombards you. Voices clamor from screens, from streets, from within your own restless mind. In such noise, it is easy to lose yourself, to mistake busyness for meaning, to confuse clamor with importance. But step into silence even for a few minutes, and you will find clarity returning. Silence is also restraint, the discipline of not answering every insult, not commenting on every matter, not pouring fuel onto the fires of conflict. When you hold your tongue, you often preserve not only your peace, but the peace of those around you. Words can wound, but silence can heal. To practice silence is not to withdraw forever, but to create space for the soul. Walk without music. Sit without a screen. Let thoughts rise and fall without chasing them. In that quiet, the noise of the world fades, and you remember that peace is always near, waiting for you to listen. Peace is not stumbled upon by accident. It is cultivated through deliberate practice. The Stoics developed exercises to train the mind just as one might train the body, for they knew that philosophy is not mere words, but a way of life. These practices, simple in design yet profound in effect, are tools to steady the soul against the chaos of the world. One of the most powerful is premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Each morning you imagine the difficulties the day might bring, insults, delays, illness, loss. By rehearsing them in advance, you blunt their sting. What surprises us often hurts us most. What is expected loses much of its power. Marcus Aurelius began his mornings this way, reminding himself that he would meet people who were selfish, ungrateful, arrogant. By expecting it, he was prepared to face them with patience instead of anger. Another is negative visualization. Instead of constantly craving more, you pause and imagine life without what you already have. Picture the absence of a loved one, the loss of your health, the end of comforts you take for granted. At first, this may seem grim, but its fruit is gratitude. By contemplating loss, you awaken to the value of what is present. Seneca advised dining sometimes without luxuries, drinking water instead of wine, to remind yourself how little you truly need. This practice frees you from the grip of fear and greed, teaching you that contentment is always within reach. Journaling is another tool, the daily act of putting thoughts on paper. It forces clarity, reveals hidden fears, and records lessons for tomorrow. Marcus's meditations were nothing more than his private journal, never intended for others, yet they became one of the greatest guides to peace. By writing down your judgments, your struggles, your reflections, you wrestle them into order instead of letting them wander chaotically in the mind. There is also the practice of voluntary discomfort. Sleep on the floor, fast for a day, expose yourself to cold. These small trials remind you that comfort is not a necessity, but a privilege that you can endure more than you think. When true hardship arrives, you will find it less terrifying, for you have rehearsed resilience. Each of these exercises is not an end in itself, but a training for peace. They strengthen the soul against fortune's blows, making calm not a fragile gift, but a well-forged shield. Yet Stoicism does not stop at the self. Peace, if it is genuine, flows outward into the lives of others. The Stoics believed we are all citizens of the world, bound together by reason and duty. To live only for yourself is to shrink your soul. To serve others is to expand it. And in that expansion, peace deepens. Marcus Aurelius bore the crushing weight of empire not for his own glory, but for the good of Rome. He endured long campaigns, sleepless nights, endless burdens, all as an act of service. Epictetus reminded his students that each person is a role in the grand play of life, and our duty is to perform it well, not just for ourselves, but for the whole. Seneca, even while counseling emperors, urged generosity and kindness, insisting that service to others enriches the giver as much as the receiver. Service removes the restless gaze from our own troubles and directs it toward the needs of others. In helping, in forgiving, in comforting, we discover a strength and serenity that self-centered living never grants. To console a grieving friend, to mentor a struggling youth, to offer kindness to a stranger, these acts ground us in something larger than ourselves. Peace through service is paradoxical. By giving yourself away, you gain yourself. By lifting others, you lighten your own burdens. By choosing compassion over selfishness, you quiet the noise of ego that so often disturbs the soul. To walk through life as a servant of the common good is to walk in harmony with nature, for we were not made to live isolated, but to live together. In serving, you cease asking, "What do I lack?" and begin asking, "What can I give?" And in that shift, peace takes root, deeper, stronger, unshaken by the shifting tides of fortune. When all the teachings of Stoicism are gathered, they point to one ultimate lesson. Peace is a choice. Not a choice made once and forgotten, but a choice renewed each day, each moment. You cannot command the world, but you can command yourself. You cannot silence the storms outside, but you can calm the storm within. Every time you decide to accept what you cannot change, every time you choose virtue over vice, every time you turn away from fear or greed, you are choosing peace. It is tempting to believe that peace will arrive someday when the conditions are right, when your work is secure, when your health is strong, when your relationships are smooth, when the world quiets down. But Stoicism insists that day will never come, because conditions are never fully in your hands. The only true condition for peace is the decision to live by reason and virtue, to rest in what depends on you and release what does not. Imagine standing at a crossroads each morning. One path leads to turmoil, the path of clinging, of resisting, of demanding that the world obey your will. The other path leads to calm, the path of acceptance, discipline, gratitude, and service. Both roads will contain hardships, both will face storms, but only one allows you to walk with steady steps. That path is yours to choose. The Stoics give us tools, but tools must be used. No one can choose peace for you. It is a freedom that belongs to you alone. In every insult you may choose calm. In every loss you may choose endurance. In every uncertainty you may choose trust. The world will always swirl with chaos, but your soul can remain anchored if you choose. That is the deepest lesson of all. And so we arrive at the closing call to reflection. Ask yourself, how have you been living? Have you been chasing peace in fortune, in the hands of others, in the shifting winds of circumstance? Or will you begin to seek it where it has always been waiting, in your own heart, in your own reason, in your own choices? The Stoics would urge you to begin now, not tomorrow. Begin by practicing one discipline today. Pause before you judge, or write a note of gratitude, or accept calmly what arrives. Begin small, for peace grows with practice. Every act of self-mastery is a step toward freedom. Every moment of acceptance, a stone laid in the foundation of tranquility. The paradox is clear. Peace is not won in conquest but in surrender, not to weakness but to wisdom. It is found not in bending the world to your will, but in bending your will to truth. It is not found in noise, but in silence, not in grasping, but in letting go. The world will remain loud, fortune will remain fickle, people will remain imperfect, but you are not at their mercy. The Stoic heart remains still, not because the storm is gone, but because it has learned to be calm while the storm rages. And in that stillness lies the secret, true inner peace.